You can AMC me cashing this money in at the bank. People are making out like bandits this week due to the AMC Short Squeeze. I'm telling you, it is a very exciting time to be an active trader in the market. So I'm going to review what happened in last week's price action, what we can expect this week going into the week of the 11th here in June, and what are some of the things that I'm doing, what are some of the things that you can be doing if you want to participate in this crazy roller coaster that is the stock market. So before that, a few really important things that we need to cover. Number one, my name is Forrest. I invest in stuff. Just a regular guy like you, trying to live a life of freedom maybe a little bit earlier than 65 years old, because being old and then living sounds kind of terrible. Number two, what is a short squeeze and why is it happening to AMC, GameStop, and these other things? So I'm not going to go super deep into this. This will just be the 30-second abridged version, but basically a short squeeze or short sellers are people who bet that a stock is going to go down. Specifically in AMC, there's a lot of let's just say alleged naked short selling, where you're basically betting with shares that you don't even have, and then we're actually betting with more shares than actually exist. And so there's a ton of nuance in how this is actually possible, but basically you could create a situation where there's a ton of fake downwards pressure on a stock, and allegedly they're releasing these articles, working with news organizations to push the price down even further. But what can happen is if other people, other institutional investors, or a bunch of retail investors all realize that something's overshorted, they can create upwards pressure on that stock by buying it, not selling it, right? So basically reducing the volume. It doesn't matter how many people want to sell if no one is buying, right? You create this upward pressure, or sorry, I should flip that around. It doesn't matter. They can't really drive the price down, right? If nobody is selling, right? So this creates a bunch of upwards pressure, and then they have to start to cover. So what does it mean when a short has to cover, right? It's think of it this way: when you make a downward bet, there's a clock on that. There's a timer, right? You've got a certain amount of time, and if you run out of time and you don't realize your bet, if you're wrong on your bet within that time window, you've got to cover it, right? You basically got to pay to cover your loss, right? Not exactly how it works, but that's how we'll explain it here for kind of the 101 short squeeze. So if I'm buying to cover my loss, that creates upwards pressure because I have to buy shares of the stock. Well, what about the other shorts? Well, now the price is going up and I'm like, shit, now I got to cover my position, right? So they start buying to cover their position. And then short seller C is like, well, shit, now I got to cover my position. So they start buying to create my position. And then a bunch of people, tons and tons of shares. Remember, there are more shares short than actually exist. So they can't buy up all the shares that they need to cover their position. And you've got people like me who are holding the shares who are saying, I'm not going to sell. I'm going to restrict the supply so that now you literally can't get the shares you need. And that creates more price. Now they're going to pay a premium for the shares that they can get because there's a reduced amount of selling. The price rockets up higher and higher and higher and higher. And then when it hits a certain key level for me, I'll go ahead and dump my shares and lock in some absolutely insane gains, right? So that is what a short squeeze is at a high level. There's something called the gamma squeeze as well, which is something that has happened in the market. We're not going to go too much into that. It just has to deal with options. All of this is really driven by options activity and stuff like that. Really, to talk about this though, I think it'll be useful to just jump into some charts. So no more beating the bush. Let's jump in and look at the price action over the last week. Okay, so we are now looking at AMC's price action really over the last, what are we looking at here? Some time window. Yeah, this is like a month chart, right? So really the thing that we care about here are really the last few days here. So this is June 4th. You can see here I'm hovering. If you look at the white cursor on the bottom of the screen, we can see the date that we're going over here. And really the last week, for those of you who aren't familiar with dates, was the week of the 31st through the 4th, right? So 31st, let's go to the 31st, which is in the middle of the screen, right? And I could change this, but we're just going to do it like this. Actually, there was no trading. It was Memorial Day. So the 1st through the 4th. So on June 1st, we can see the price was right around $30, right? We closed on that day. Let me go to the, let's just look at the daily chart. So now we're looking at the daily chart here, and it looks like on June 1st, it closed right around $31. Okay. And if we go here to where we see where this red line is today, it is up at $47. If I move this chart up here, you can see this upward green wick here on the 2nd. This was the Wednesday where things got really crazy. We can see we pushed up to $72. I remember that, and I actually bought some options that day. So Wednesday morning, I actually woke up and I saw the price action was crazy. I actually wasn't following this too hard before. I wasn't in AMC, but I saw that the volatility was going crazy, and I said, this looks very similar to what happened to GameStop before, right? I rode the GameStop wave. So I got in, I made a random bet, got in, bought some June 4th calls, right? So those are a bet that is going to go up that expired on that Friday. Bought those Wednesday, made a quick $6,000 on that, dumped that. I was watching it some more. It was a really busy Wednesday for me because I was also working, right? So I don't really trade unless I've done research before, but had a little window of time. I was like, all right, I risked $27,000, basically, bought some more options. And then as it pushed up to 70, those went super far into the money, right? Those were some $54 calls, expired June 4th, and made about $20,000 on those or so. I exited on about $20,000. I left some money on the table, right? So very quick swing, very risky. Could have lost my $27,000, but I figured since I was up 6 already, had a nice little like $21,000 window that I was willing to lose, right? Fortunate enough to be in a position where I can just, essentially pay a $21,000 lesson if I was wrong. So that is the price action over the last week. We can see here there's a pretty meteoric rise if we just look at this time series going back even further here, right? Some big dips. We can see the, what is this? The 50-day, 100 and 200-day moving average. Here are these green, blue, and purple lines here. And we can see that we're sitting right. We broke through this what is this? The 50-day, the 50-day moving average a bit, but we're well above the 100-day, right? These are just useful indicators to see price action over time. Highly recommend looking into charting, stuff like that. We're not going to get too into it, but what can we expect in this next week? So let's go into, instead of looking at the 1 day, let's look at the 30-minute bar chart. Okay, so now each one of these candlesticks is 30 minutes. We can see here, I'll push this up a bit, come over, and we'll zoom out. All right, so we have some pretty extreme volatility. You see a few gaps here. If we look at the 30-minute, there's a gap here that formed right on the 27th of May, the 21st. That gap got filled. As we move into the new week, 28th of May, there's a gap here. We didn't actually fill that gap, which is interesting here. But I mean, this is a 30-minute chart, so whatever. And a few other gaps, right? So whenever prices start to gap up like that, it basically means that it doesn't basically mean that, but it's an indicator that the stock could be running away, right? It's just pushing up. There's so much upwards pressure. It's just pushing, or it could be downwards pressure, right? The stock is just on a run. It's very important to see and recognize things like that when they happen. So what can we expect? I think that's enough of this for now. Let me go ahead and stop recording. All right. So that is saved. So what should we do coming into this week, right? You're looking at me, you're like, Forrest, we're a few minutes into this video now. I just want to know how to make money, right? This stuff, the green stuff here, right? The dollars. And this isn't real money, by the way. It's fake money. I'm not going to throw real money around, but it's cool for YouTube. So what should you do, right? Well, first of all, I can't recommend that you do anything because I'm not a financial advisor and that's illegal. But here are some things that someone who is interested in making money could do, right? I expect, right, and this is just my opinion, right? Just my opinion, that we're going to see some more volatility this week and an additional run up in AMC. We saw this in GameStop. There was an initial week where things got crazy, right? And then the next week, things got stupid, as in like stupid crazy, right? So I think that we can expect that some more. We've also seen that TD has restricted margin on AMC. A few other brokerages as well. So the brokerages are basically saying, they're seeing some signs like, hey, we aren't going to let people trade on margin because they're all going to lose their money, and TD is going to be holding the bag on that, right? They don't want to do that, right? And if you're wondering how TD would hold the bag, it's basically, say I bet $50,000 and then I lose, $300,000, and I can't pay TD. TD knows how much money their users have, and it's just not worth it to them as a broker. So they're going to restrict those requirements, or make restrictions on those stocks that they don't want people to just cost them money on. Cool. So there's some signs there. The brokerages are saying, hey, a little too hot. We're seeing very similar patterns to what happened earlier in the year with GameStop. So what I'm going to do is, hopefully, because I'm pretty sure Monday morning, and this is a guess, I'm pretty sure pre-market Monday morning, early trading before the market actually opens at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to see it super hot in the pre-market. It'll probably dip again heavily as it always does. So anytime you see a run up in the early hours trading, there's almost always a pullback as the rest of the market opens up and volatility increases. Right, you basically have more competition for pricing. Pulls back, try and get a good entry there. I'll probably do some June 11th calls again. I might do some shares. Considering I might liquidate another position, put like $100,000 in on shares. Don't know. The differences there is that the options are going to give me leverage, but I'm not necessarily going to be helping Forrest to squeeze by buying those calls. If I buy $100,000 worth of shares, that could create a little bit of price pressure. It's a drop in the bucket, but it feels like the right thing to do. Like, for the cause, put $100,000 in, buy the AMC shares, right? So that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm very likely will do. This is all very dependent on the price action that I see in the morning. I'll be up very, very early tomorrow morning, looking at pricing and making these decisions. And I'll try to let you know. I have a Discord, so click the link down in Discord if you want to ask me, hey, Forrest, ultimately, what did you do? I'll pop in there and I'll tell you guys what I did. So what can you do? Well, you could do something similar to me. I do not recommend it if you're a novice trader. If you don't have a lot of money to risk, beware. Making risky trades is a great way to make a lot of money. It's a great way to turn $5,000 into 20. It's also a great way to turn $5,000 into $5. Or even worse, you can turn $5,000 into negative $5,000, and now you have a debt to pay. So I really want to caution people who don't understand the mechanics of this. If you don't understand what options are, I really want to see y'all win, but there's always a play in the market. So, as much as I want to be entertaining, I also don't want to see people get hurt out there. It's a risky game. It's a risky game with real consequences. And the last thing you want to do is be spending this next 6 months paying off some debt on some wacky trade you made, in 5 minutes, right? So do your homework. There's going to be other plays, guys. I can tell you, there's always a next play. There's always some other crazy way to make money in the market. I promise you there is. Just look at history. There's been more than enough events where you could, participate, right? But okay, you say, Forrest, I understand options, all right? I kind of want to get in. There's a few things you could do. You could do some January 11th calls. If you want to give yourself a little bit more time, you can go into the next week, which is a strategy that I do. Sometimes I go a little bit further outdated. You'll still get a decent run up and premiums on your calls. It just won't be as extreme as things that are dated for this week, right? But that's a good way to reduce your risk. If you can get in at a good price, and if you suspect that we'll hit a new price floor, right? So there's some protection there. You can do a straddle, things like that, right? Play both sides. But generally speaking, I would just risk as much money as you're willing to lose and stick with that. That is the general strategy. Be smart, be diligent, make some money. I want to know what you all are doing down in the comments. Do let me know. Do you think that brokerages should restrict these things when they're super hot? I just want to know your opinions on these things. Hopefully, my goal in this would be make another maybe 50 grand on this. Easy money in my opinion. That's my play. It's a good chunk of change. In the last week I've made, $30,000. It's funny, my first job out of college I was making 55 grand, and I feel like I can just make 55 grand like that now. Later in life, I'm 30 now, but anyways, I digress. Hope you like this video. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. You know you want to smash the like button. For every person who smashes the like button, I will make another video. I can promise you that. So go ahead, if you want another video, hit the like button, send it to 2 of your friends, tell them to subscribe, hit the like button, help a brother get to 10,000 subscribers this year. You could be the next one. If you're already here, I appreciate you for sticking around. And until the next one, I'm Forrest. I invest in stuff. You should too. Peace.